The saga begins. It seemingly all began thousands of years ago. But for the purposes of this discussion, let's start with some events that we all are familiar with. In 1947, 2 years after we set off the first nuclear explosion that our current civilization detonated, came the Mantell episode, where we had the first recorded incident of a military confrontation with extraterrestrials that resulted in the death of a military pilot. It is quite evident now that our government did not know quite how to handle the situation. In 1952, the nation's capital was overflown by a series of discs. It was this event which led to the involvement of United States security forces, CIA, NSA, DIA, FBI, to try to keep the situation under control until they could understand what was happening. During this period, the government established a working group known as Majestic 12, MJ-12. The original members were Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, Dr. Vannevar Bush, Secretary James Forrestal, General Nathan P. Twining, General Hoyt S. Vandenberg, Dr. Detlev Bronk, Dr. Jerome Hunsaker, Mr. Sidney W. Sowers, Mr. Gordon Gray, Dr. Donald Menzel, General Robert M. Montague, and Dr. Lloyd V. Berkner. The MJ-12 group has been a continuously existing group since it was created, with new members replacing others that die. For example, when Secretary Forrestal was upset at seeing the United States sold out in World War II, he wound up being sent to a naval hospital for emotional strain. Before relatives could get to him, he jumped out a 16th-story window. Most persons close to him consider his suicide contrived. When Forrestal died, he was replaced by General Walter B. Smith. In December of 1947, Project Sign was created to acquire as much information as possible about UFOs, their performance, characteristics, and their purposes. In order to preserve security, liaison between Project Sign and MJ-12 was limited to 2 individuals within the Intelligence Division of the Air Materiel Command, whose role it was to pass along certain types of information through channels. Project Sign evolved into Project Grudge in December 1948. Project Grudge had an over-civilian counterpart named Project Blue Book, with which we are all familiar. Only safe reports were passed to Blue Book. In 1949, MJ-12 evolved an initial plan of contingency called MJ-1949-04P78 that was to make allowance for public disclosure of some data should the necessity present itself. Majestic 12 was originally organized by General George C. Marshall in July 1947 to study the Roswell-Magdalena UFO crash recovery and debris. Admiral Hillenkoetter, director of the CIA from May 1, 1947 until September 1950, decided to activate the Robertson Panel, which was designed to monitor civilian UFO study groups that were appearing all over the country. He also joined NICAP in 1956 and was chosen as a member of its board of directors. It was from this position that he was able to act as the MJ-12 mole, along with his team of other covert experts. They were able to steer NICAP in any direction they wanted to go. With the flying saucer program under complete control of MJ-12 and with the physical evidence hidden away, General Marshall felt more at ease with this very bizarre situation. These men and their successors have most successfully kept most of the public fooled for 39 years, including much of the Western world, by setting up false experts and throwing their influence behind them to make their plan work with considerable success. Until now. Within 6 months of the Roswell crash on 2 July 1947 and the finding of another crashed UFO at San Augustine Flats near Magdalena, New Mexico, on 3 July 1947, a great deal of reorganization of agencies and shuffling of people took place. The main thrust behind the original security lid, and the very reason for its construction, was the analysis and attempted duplication of the technologies of the discs. That activity is headed up by the following groups: O, the Research and Development Board, R&DB; O, Air Force Research and Development, AFRD; O, the Office of Naval Research, ONAR, CIA Office of Scientific Intelligence, CIA OSI, NSA Office of Scientific Intelligence, NSA OSI. No single one of these groups was supposed to know the whole story. Each group was to know only the parts that MJ-12 allowed them to know. MJ-12 also operates through the various civilian intelligence and investigative groups. The CIA and the FBI are manipulated by MJ-12 to carry out their purposes. The NSA was created in the first place to protect the secret of the recovered flying discs and eventually got complete control over all communications intelligence. This control allows the NSA to monitor any individual through mail, telephone, telexes, telegrams, and now through online computers, monitoring private and personal communications as they choose. In fact, the present-day NSA is the current main extension of MJ-12 pertaining to the flying saucer program. Vast amounts of disinformation are spread throughout the UFO research field. Any witnesses to any aspect of the program have their lives monitored in every detail, for each has signed a security oath. For people who have worked in the program, including military members, breaking that oath could have any of the following direct consequences. A verbal warning accompanied by a review of the security oath. A stronger warning, sometimes accompanied by a browbeating and intimidation. Psychologically working on an individual to bring on depression that will lead to suicide. Murder of the person made to appear as a suicide or accident. Strange and sudden accidents, always fatal. Confinement in special detention centers. Confinement in insane asylums, where they are treated by mind control and deprogramming techniques. Individuals are released with changed personalities, identities, and altered memories. Bringing the individual into the inside, where he is employed and works for them, and where he can be watched. This is usually in closed facilities with little contact with the outside world. Underground facilities are the usual place for this. Any individual who they perceive to be too close to the truth will be treated in the same manner. MJ-12 will go to any length to preserve and protect the ultimate secret. As we will see later, the characteristics of what this ultimate secret would turn out to be would change drastically, for it was something even MJ-12 could not predict: actual contact with alien groups. How the actual contact between the government and aliens was initially made is not known, but the government was made aware that it could be done by a civilian using the right equipment. Dr. Paul Benowitz, civilian scientist, did so using computer equipment and informed the government he had done so, not realizing that by then, in 1983, that the government was in truth as deep into dealing with the aliens as his communications with them revealed. Dr. Benowitz lives next to Manzano Weapons Storage Area in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He observed UFOs constantly over the area and initially decided that they were a threat to the installation. He proceeded to figure out a coding system and attempted and was successful in communicating with the aliens that were flying over that area. What he found out is that after initial contacts with the aliens years ago, we agreed to provide them with bases underground in the United States in return for certain technological secrets which the aliens would reveal to us. The aliens would also be allowed to carry out certain operations, abductions, and mutilations without intervention. The original contact between the government and the extraterrestrial biological entities, who are gray in color and about 3.5 to 4.5 feet high, hereafter referred to as the Greys, was achieved between 1947 and 1951. We knew that the Greys were instrumental in performing the mutilations of animals and some humans, and that they were using the glandular substances derived from these materials for food, absorbed through the skin, and to clone more Greys in their underground laboratories. The government was also aware that the Greys performed some of the abductions to secure genetic materials. The government insisted that the Greys provide them with a list that would be presented to the National Security Council. Through all this, the government thought that the Greys were basically tolerable creatures, although a bit distasteful. They presumed at the time that it was not unreasonable to assume that the public would and could get used to their presence. Between 1968 and 1969, a plan was formulated to make the public aware of their existence over the succeeding 20 years. This time period would culminate with a series of documentaries that would explain the history and intentions of the Greys. The Greys assured us that the real purpose of the abductions was for monitoring of our civilization, and when we learned that the abductions were a lot more frequent and insidious than we were led to believe, the government became concerned. Their concern was also based on additional information regarding the purposes for the abductions. Insertion of a 3mm spherical biological monitoring device through the nasal cavity into the brain of the abductee. Implementing subliminal post-hypnotic suggestions that would compel the abductee to perform some specific act at a time to be within the next 2 to 5 years. Genetic crossbreeding between the Greys and human beings. Insertion of discoid monitoring devices into the muscle tissue of the abductees. Presence of these has been verified by X-ray. By the time we had found out the truth about the intentions of the Greys, they intend to stay here and stay in control of our world, it was too late. We had already sold out humanity. Not that it would have made any difference, because they were here doing what they were doing anyway. In 1983, a story was outlined by government sources that said that the Greys are responsible for our biological evolution through manipulation of the DNA of already evolving primates on this planet. Various time intervals of the DNA manipulation were specified for 25,000, 15,000, 5,000, and 2,500 years ago. Originally, the government thought that the Greys meant us no harm, but today, in 1988, the picture that is emerging is exactly the opposite. The story now is one of great deception at several different levels. The Greys' Trojan horse-style manipulation and lying, which allied MJ-12 forces with them 4 decades ago. The UFO government's disinformation of the subject of UFOs in order to perpetuate the agreement with the Greys free of public scrutiny. The lies to the abductees, the Greys' ongoing abduction of people and mutilation of animals in order to harvest enzymes, blood, and other tissues for their own survival needs, and a genetic blend of the Grey race and a tall Nordic race to enable Grey interface with humans to be done with greater ease. Information from a source at a Southwest Army base reveals that these multiple levels of deception are true. It is also indicated that the goal of SDI, Star Wars, is actually to follow through with an attack proposed by the Greys on the Nordics when they arrive en masse between now and 1992. This time schedule seems to match with the post-hypnotic programming of many abductees for actions between the next 2 to 5 years. This same source sees the world dominated and controlled by the Greys in a way similar to that portrayed in the V television series. They are concerned only for their own survival agenda, and this agenda requires biological substances from other life forms on our planet. The apparent reasoning for the Grey preoccupation with this is due to their lack of a formal digestive tract and the fact that they absorb nutrients and excrete waste directly through the skin. The substances that they acquire are mixed with hydrogen peroxide and painted on their skin, allowing absorption of the required nutrients. It is construed from this that some weaponry against them might be geared in this direction.